they were both properties, they were both apartments, and they were in our holiday pool. So we had a luxury holiday management business that we had for many, many years that we sold last December. And I had those properties held in there. And, the world was crashing at that time. Borders were closing. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to get the return that I'm going to need on these properties. And I sold 2 properties, and I still have PTSD to this day about selling those properties, because it's like the day that I sold them, the apartment market just went through the roof over the last, 5, 6 years.
And
And
they
ever since
they they would have doubled in price, right? Like
more than doubled in price. And the income that I'd be getting now on them, through the rental pool, holiday letting pool is incredible. It'll be like, two people's average wages.
and
Like,
and and am I correct in saying they were the ones in the Q1 building? So if you know the Gold Coast, you'll know that the per square meter rate for new apartments is fucking ridiculous
yeah,
versus the Q1. So the Q1's got like hundreds and hundreds of apartments, but they have the biggest floor plans of nearly all buildings in the Gold Coast. So your per
yeah,
square meter rates, there's such an arbitrage on those. We nearly bought a 3 bedder on the 60th floor, just because the square meter rates were like, it ended up working out something like nearly $1 million cheaper for something in a brand new complex.
Mark,
Something like 2.6 versus 3.6.
remind me anytime I need salt poured into my wounds, I'll go straight to you, mate. Because like Eric's just sitting there, just like,
They doubled.
Don't
Screwed,
remind me.
screwed, screwed, screwed.
yeah. Mark's not helping me in any way, but yeah, one was a Q1 or was that
It's
circle
important context.
on the Gold Coast. And ever since then, I'm like, you know what? I'm just keeping. And since then, and even before that, we've been doing a lot of different types of, properties and developments and buy and holds and, manufacture equity and stuff like that. And we've just built a new property that we moved into recently. And the property that we moved out of was a fairly new property that we actually bought off the plan, that we've done really well on, and we've held it now probably for about 7 years or so. We were living in it as our primary place of residence. And I was going to just rent it out, right? Going, okay, I want to get half decent rental return. Rents keep going up, and I'm going to rent it out. And then I started thinking to myself, and I'm going, you know what? There's a lot of opportunities out there at the moment, and I have a lot of asset in Australian real estate. And I need to start diversifying a little bit more. I have businesses and, the online businesses and stuff like that. But I look at those as assets, but I don't look at it and sit there and go, I'm not doing anything else. I'm just going to sit on this asset because I know it's going to be worth something in the future. I'm always just progressing. It's not how I roll. So I've been thinking to myself, going, okay, it was our primary place of residence for many years. It's went up in value. And
Can we talk numbers, like what you paid for it off the plan, what you think it's worth now?
yeah, I reckon it's probably worth around, I mean, it's not big numbers, but it's 2 million, about $2 million. We paid 900 and change for it. So it's doubled in value.
Townhouse? Yep.
It's like a villa. Yeah. And, basically we don't owe much on it at all. So we've got this house that's sitting there, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a fair bit of, equity just sitting in this house, right? Cash. And started working out the calculations on what I could get for a rental yield. And, like by the time you pay the body corporate, because it's in a body corporate, and you pay, the insurances and the rest of it, I'm like, the return's not good enough. Right. And I'm like, there's a good time here now that I can actually sell this tax free, take that money and invest it in other things. And I'm diversifying now. So what I want to start doing is diversifying, not just in different assets. I already have Bitcoin. Yes, I have Ethereum. I got plenty of businesses, but I want to start diversifying my money overseas, right? And I want to start investing a little bit more into stocks, more into Tesla as an example, because I believe in Tesla and the long-term potential of Tesla, and Bitcoin, and all overseas stock. And I'm going to start looking in Dubai, for those of you guys that, heard our last pod, that we're going to be doing stuff in Dubai. And I've got a very close friend there that's honestly made so much money over the last 5 years in Dubai. It's not even funny. So that's what I'm doing, and diversifying a little bit. But it's actually taken me a long time, right? It's actually taken me a couple months to actually make the decision in my mind, because I was battling going, no, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to regret it. And I'm going to look back in 5 years time and when it's going to be worth $2.5 million. And, these types of thoughts going through my mind because of the, you know, the PTSD basically that I have, from those other two sales. But I'm like, you know what? I just cut the ties, cut the cord, and looking at diversifying. And I know once I've done the calculations, I'll get a lot better return on these other assets. Something like a Tesla as an example, that'll just be long term, right? Buy and hold. Same thing with the Bitcoin, buy and hold. And with the Dubai stuff, we'll just see how the market goes there and what else we can do. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I've been doing, what I've been contemplating over the last 2 months in my mind.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
the,
think
the fact that
Yeah.
it's capital gains tax free. One, you get to keep it all, and two, you can't do anything more to that property to improve its value. So
That's another thing I didn't mention, right? So
you're just praying for the market to go up, and if the market peters out a little bit, and then you got your dry powder caught in you guess you can refi and pull some equity out of it, but
yeah,
again, you got to beat that hurdle rate, right?
yeah,
So
and that's the other thing I didn't mention, right? So any of the property that I have, it's all property that you can manufacture growth. You can do a DA, you can split it, you can build units on it, you can build duplexes on it. These types of land plays, like the one we have in Burley is an example where we're going to do 5 villas on it, and that's the only one I can't do anything with. It's 7 years old. It's still fairly new. We kept it in really, really good nick. You can't subdivide it. You can't do anything. It's in a body corporate community, beautiful position. Not far from the water. It's on the water. But you can't do anything with it, right? Whereas I want
That was the same. That was the same for the 2 properties you sold in Q1 as well, though, right?
correct.
You couldn't. Well, I mean, kinda couldn't do anything with them, but I think the I think the important thing is doing the calculations based on rental returns as well. Like you've got this asset, so let's say it's fully paid off at 2 million. I know you're a little bit on it, but let's say it's fully paid off at 2 million. The
Yeah.
return on that is what, roughly what percent return is it? How much?
Well, yeah. So
That's
if you get
quite.
say 1,700 a week rent, you know what I mean? Now it's a $2 million asset. It's a 4.4% return plus costs that have to come off that as an example. And yes, it'll go up by, hoping that it would go up by
Right.
5-6% a year, and you add that back and the rest of it. But I could get better returns doing other things with that money.
But like
Beside the
we've spoken about the debasement, like the hurdle rate of monetary debasement is 8% plus
Yep.
whatever inflation is, and at the moment in Australia it's running at 3 point something, so that's 11 to 12%. So unless you're clearly making 11 to 12% a year, it it's not that it's not worth keeping, it's that can you beat that hurdle rate? And that's what I'm interested to see how you're going to allocate
Mm.
those funds. But Rafi, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I mean, like when you have so many assets and you're thinking about, basically freeing up your capital to put into different assets, like what is the framework you use in your mind to calculate opportunity costs? Because I think that's a really practical thing because a lot of people might be sitting on different assets and um, different bits of capital to decide where to go. And so how did you run through that opportunity cost in your system, knowing what you've done in 2020 to get rid of some of those Q1 properties? How has your analysis of opportunity costs changed, if at all? And how did you decide, okay, I'm going to cut the ties here now and with a degree of confidence to move forward? I guess that's the thing. Cause when you have PTSD, some people just always hold on moving forward, but you going back into it, there must have been,
Yeah.
I'd just be interested to hear the thinking.
For me, it was not that it was easy. I'm looking at it going, okay, like let's look at my portfolio, let's look at my assets, and I'm top heavy in real estate, right? And I want to diversify. So I want to buy more Bitcoin. I want to buy a bigger chunk of Tesla, right? And I think Tesla, in the next 10 years still has plenty of growth to be had. It's not your 100 times, but I still think there's a good, you know, multiple in Tesla because it's a lot more than a car company, as we discussed. But again, sitting there and listening to these conversations and listening to Mark and listening to Adam and James and being in different chats and stuff like that, it gives you a lot more inspiration, a lot more motivation, to look at different things, right? Like Tesla as an example, like Bitcoin. But for me, it was just very easy going, I see what's happening in Dubai. I see the infrastructure that's being built there, the spending that's happening there. And I've got the stories of my good friend that's been there for 3.5 years going, hey, see this office that I just bought? I paid 1.5 million for it as an example. And this is, in Australian dollars. Well, I've just been offered 3.2 million for it 18 months later. These types of conversations. And I'm like, you know what? If I can do 20% of that, right? If I'm 20% right, it's so much better. And that's and the writing's on the wall. And for me, I want to start diversifying and having a bit more money outside. So I want to buy something in Europe as well. In our hometown, where we were born. My parents were born in Portugal. We're Portuguese descent. And, for me, it's just really looking at that succession planning now, going, okay, where do we want to be in the future? Where are some home bases? So it's a little bit of lifestyle play at the same time as investment. But at the same time, I believe in these places. I believe in like Dubai. I believe in Tesla and these types of companies. And that's where it's at. So it's basic numbers really with a bit of lifestyle twist to it.
That's interesting because it's like you've expanded the aperture of opportunity just by being around other people that are investing differently. And I think that's an important thing, like just being around people that are allocating their capital in different ways is such a valuable thing because if you're in your own lane, like for example, I'm in e-commerce. I only talk to e-commerce people and it's like always e-commerce. But just even being part of these conversations, it's like, oh, I get to see how other people are spending their time, finite resource, spending their capital, which can be an infinite resource if you know how to like grow it. I think it's really clever and willing to plant the seeds early, knowing what your long-term vision is from a lifestyle perspective. I think that's a good kind of like framework and calculus to run through. So no, I appreciate you sharing that, man, because it's because I'm like a few years behind you. So it's like just hearing your thought process helps me update my OS as far as how I approach opportunities that come across.
And that's what it's about, right? Like if you're not in the rooms or you're not surrounding yourself or you're not listening to be different types of podcasts,